The first time that I heard about retro games was when I was younger, and my dad, he had introduced them to me.
We always made sure that every time we went out, we were always doing our thing and going and play the arcades like Pac-Man and all that other stuff that we had.
The first time I ever played a retro game was with my dad, and I believe we were looking through them, and I was like, okay, what type of game is that?
I was introduced to my first console from one of my relatives that I lived with in the house with, and it was a Nintendo Entertainment System.
Experiences from my youth would actually be the first time that I was able to actually play Mario instead of everybody hogging the game. I was able to play it. I experienced how to actually play the game by myself. Learned a little few tricks, you know, the way that you normally would do in any games. They all got secrets. So I was happy because I was able to actually enjoy a game on my own without being pushed around to not being able to play it.
I was like, okay, what type of game is that? He was like, well, it's an old school game. You don't know about this. And I was like, okay, well, I want to try it. And my first experience was amazing. I loved it. It was very good.
I didn't really get to go to the arcades until I was maybe 10 years old or whatnot. And my first time going was in New Orleans at an arcade that was called Pennyland. And it was just amazing. You know, it wasn't like the home arcade, because like the home console, because to me that was normal, because when I was born, it was already there. So it was kind of like how the television was for folks that grew up with TV. It was just a normal thing.
It was a bit complicated because I didn't know how the controls worked, considering how old they were. They weren't that old, and I didn't really know what to do. But then my dad, of course, he taught me, so I knew everything I had to do, which made it very, very, very much easier and much more fun.
I'm a Super Mario fan, so that's just, Mario is my games. The ones when we had the little guns for the Nintendo and we had to shoot the little ducks with the little woof woof doggy and he's doing his thing. That game I can remember when I could never shoot a duck. I couldn't shoot a duck. I don't know why, but I could not shoot the duck. That was one of my things with that. I can remember vividly because I really used to get really mad at that game because I could never shoot a duck.
But the arcade was a different animal because I was a bit older and I was able to see so many different colors, so many different screens, so much. It just felt like a different place.
No.
But it was really cool. I enjoyed it.
My first experience playing one, it was, I don't remember which game it was, but it was really interesting because I liked the pixely style of it. I thought it was really cool. And it was, I think they were simple controls, so it was pretty easy for me to understand how to play it well.
First time I saw that game, I was at a house and I had walked in and they had the arcade cabinet. I didn't know what it was at first because I just heard a whole crowd of people screaming in the background and yelling, and I'm like, is there a fight going on back there or something? But turns out that they were playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the big body arcade machine. And when I saw it, my eyes lit up. I never in my life ever seen anything like that before. There was Magneto fighting Ryu fighting Akuma and Gambit. It just was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Well, retro games, I feel like they all had a very simplistic style, so they didn't really worry much about the graphics of them. It was mostly about what kind of story it would be or how well it would work. And modern games, they're more focused around the exact same thing, and they put more effort into, I think, the way that it looks rather than the actual story of the game.
Retro games before had more story and adventure to it instead of the same thing over and over again, because some of these games are basically just copies of the others. So I believe retro games were definitely much better and more heart was put into it.
What's gonna happen next? Are we gonna be able to find a secret under a block like we normally do when we were doing in Mario? You know, are we gonna be able to go and stand somewhere and end up getting a key or a whistle if you found a secret inside of a castle or something like that?
I lost a lot of friends over video games. I can remember when I was younger, we'll play like on a Nintendo 64, and we'll be playing like WCW versus NWO, or even like Tekken 3. Like, I have a cousin to this day that we don't talk because of Tekken 3. Like, that game has ruined lives. But I made a lot of good friends playing Marvel, playing Street Fighter, you know, just being a kid in the neighborhood, running down the street to my buddy's house with a new cartridge I just got, you know, sitting down playing couch co-op with them. Like, you know, those memories are with me and they're with him. And whenever I load up those games, I feel that same energy.
I feel like the style of them is really interesting, because it's like now everyone bases the style of their games off the same thing, because like if it did well, then they want to recreate that. And I think, I mean, with retro games, most of the styles, they were like all pixely, but you could still tell it was like different. And I also think that like the certain like costumes and things that they used to have on the characters was interesting as well, because it was like they were simple, but it still looked cool. And yeah.
Arcade games will always be arcade games. They are the soul of a game, which brings, even though you went broke trying to play like Marvel versus Capcom and anything like that, and you're trying to put that in there, and you're just trying to fight, and you just keep going broke, and you're trying to put those quarters in and just keep going. You know, it was something that was amazing, that a lot of people would be like, you know, it was more of a social environment when it was the arcade.
Usually someone's gonna find it again, like more, and they'll be like, yeah, this is way better than what we have now. But then there's always that one person who's like, no, that's old school, nobody cares about that anymore, which is a lie, because half of those games are 10 times better than the games that we play now that we call awesome, such as Fortnite.
I think there's a good group of people that have either begun appreciating the retro games or started or have already been appreciating them, because like right now the older styles and everything like old-timey is starting to become more modern. And so I think there is a good amount of people that would still appreciate the retro games.
I believe that's called having taste.